Hello, my name is Amanda. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about body dysmorphia. I'm going to talk about what it is and how it affected me personally for the majority of my adult life up till about age 35, age 36, and how I faced it head on after my near-death experience. So for anyone who doesn't know, body dysmorphic disorder or symptoms of that can look like or feel like an overwhelming preoccupation with a perceived flaw in the appearance. It can be very delusional. You can be underweight, overweight, regular weight, and still be strongly affected by this. The ruminations with this perceived flaw or flaws in different parts of your appearance can be very overwhelming, intrusive, pervasive. They can consume you for many hours of the day. They can result in you doing strange things to alter your appearance, not going outside, canceling plans, calling in sick to work, not going to school. The waves of it, the intensity of it can wax and wane, and flare-ups can be unexpected but very serious, and it can lead to social isolation, being housebound. And it can result in poor concentration, very little motivation, spending a lot of money on altering your appearance because the way that you look or the body part that is like really dysmorphic to you, often it's somebody's arms, their face, their skin, their stomach. It could be nearly any part of the body. Putting a lot of money, even money you don't even have, could be your credit card, into altering your appearance. And whereas other people will tell you you look fine, they'll just see you, the big picture of you, as a normal person, imperfect but normal, you will feel absolutely often repulsed and disgusted about the body you're in and very hyper focused on the part that you would love to change. So, how it affected me personally. So I started having big issues with this when I say 14 or 15. That's when it set in. And, that's probably pretty typical hormonal changes. The body's starting to go into puberty. If you're already sensitive, you already have, some weird ideas going through your head as a teenager. But it wouldn't just stay in my teenage years. So for me, it waxed and waned constantly over the course of my life. I remember periods of time where I wouldn't leave my room. I was too uncomfortable. I had these paranoid thoughts that everyone was staring at me, staring at the body parts that I thought were really disgusting. In my mind, there was like an amplified, distorted view of them, and I thought that's how everyone else saw me, and it was going to be too embarrassing to be in public. Spending way too much money on like dietitians, gym memberships, different clothes that I thought could, mask and camouflage different parts of my body, and then those clothes didn't work, and just like this whole routine. What else? Yeah, eating disorders. I mean, for me, I was in this real routine for many years of like working out sometimes twice a day at the gym, doing excessive cardio, hiring a dietitian to like help me count my calories, count my macros, like the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fats, and have like this whole regimen going on. Excessive amounts of makeup. I wouldn't leave the house unless I was like fully painted up, like fully camouflage my natural face. Extremely expensive hairdressers that I couldn't afford or out of my budget to like just have my hair look perfect. The list goes on and on and on. So living like this, you kind of like just get used to it because you never really feel like you measure up and like you're good enough, and you've got to, just to get through the day and to feel okay and not have like panic attacks from how you're viewing yourself in the mirror or in photos or just looking down at your body. It's kind of like a hell of its own. And yeah, it can lead to eating disorders for sure, and it did for me. So that's a little bit about how it affected me personally. It eventually brought on, waves of depression because obviously, like, no matter how hard we try to alter our appearance, sometimes it's never going to be the way that the inner critic and the disordered mind want it to look. So it's like this game that you can never win. And after having a near-death experience, in 2017, you would think that, having this experience encountering other dimensions, a higher dimension, remembering more of who I really was, you'd think that these kind of experience would solve somebody's problems, that their issues would go away because they had this, very up close and personal, more than ever, encounter with their higher self and divinity. What I did find was that light of God that was just really shining on the wholeness of my human experience, my human being, amplified and lit up many beautiful things, showed me some of the gifts that I hadn't really noticed or used. Colors were brighter. I was seeing the good side of people and their higher self. There was a lot of light shined on the goodness and good parts of my human experience. And then at the same time, and especially in the years that would follow, the light was shining on the repressed things, the things that I had not been able to heal, the things that I had not been able to look at about myself, ways that I was in denial about the way that I was showing up, and traumas that I had not known how to deal with, not known how to face, address, feel supported to process, ran away from basically. So, as that light would continue to shine on layers and layers of these things that were just kind of hiding in the shadows, one of the biggest ones that it shone on for me was this history of body dysmorphia. And although I wasn't in a particularly intense wave of it at the time of my car accident, it didn't matter, because what's in the subconscious, the impressions, the imprints, the thoughts we have about ourselves, the thoughts and ideas we take on from society, maybe role models, they're there. Unless we've brought truth to them, they do remain in the subconscious. And I learned this the hard way. So I was actually doing okay, feeling okay about myself at the time of the car accident. And then in the months that passed, I was still in a pretty blissed out state. But as more and more layers would kind of be peeled off, and I would see more of the truth of my experience as Amanda, one of the huge ones was kind of revisiting, and not just revisiting from an observation or a cognitive level of interest and curiosity, but as a re-experiencing, a purging and a moving through and a re-experiencing of all kinds of impressions and thoughts and inner critic and crazy behavior about altering my appearance throughout my whole life up until then. So I'm talking feelings of disgust, feelings of repulsion, feelings of not measuring up, but in a very deep way where you do very extreme things in order to convince yourself that you're okay. And this would come around and around in waves. And I can't put an exact time on it, but I was kind of re-experiencing and purging and letting go of these energies and impressions. It was at least 9 months into over a year. And at first it was just I felt like I was being punished. I was not this again. I forgot about how bad this has been. And I'm not working out at the gym anymore. I'm not going on these diets. I'm not covering myself fully in covering myself up in these ways that I used to, because I realized that even when I would try at the beginning of kind of refacing this, even when I would try and do my old ways of suppressing and distracting and hiding and running away, the light was shining so brightly, and the intensity of these old impressions of body dysmorphia, these old repulsions, they were louder than any of my coping mechanisms. They were louder than all of the things that used to work to cover up and hide. And so that's why I kind of abandoned ship. I was realizing, okay, nothing's working. Nothing's working. And I did suffer because I didn't really know what to do to sit with these things. As I would meet, serendipitously, the right teachers and guides who had gone before me on this path of healing, I would learn about sitting with and being with even the most uncomfortable, shocking, piercing, dark, repugnant thoughts, emotions, and impressions as they were trying to make their way out, show themselves to me so they could make their way out of my life. Because in spiritual awakening, when the light of God starts shining on the layers of our past experience and our past impressions, there's nowhere to hide. You know, going to the gym twice a day and extreme diets and expensive hairdos is like, you can't hide with those things because the light gets too bright. Our sensitivity gets too high to the truth of the things that we've done and told ourselves all these years. So very, very slowly, and painfully, learning and trusting these guides and teachers that I could sit with anything that came up. When my distractions and my addictions and my covering up didn't work, I actually, and you, everyone watching this, has the inner strength and has the inner will. It's built into all of us to be able to sit with our disgust, to be able to listen to the nonsense and the lies of the inner critic and observe them and kind of like, okay, that's what you have to say, but yet I am the light inside. I am the light that shines and is watching and hearing the inner critic and is feeling the repulsion and is experiencing the disgust. And to be honest, this was really hard and it was almost too much. So I would practice, sometimes I could only kind of feel it for 5 or 10 seconds and then I would just sleep for the rest of the day. It was just too overwhelming. And yet I trusted these teachers and guides that sitting with and feeling with and facing was the way out, because I would look at their life and they weren't living like this. And I knew their stories and I knew that they had been through sometimes worse things than me. So I did commit to this process, although it took a long time. And what would happen slowly was I could sit with these accusations from my inner critic longer and longer. For example, a wave of repulsion would come up over the way that my stomach looked in the mirror. Anyone else would think I look normal and fine, but in my mind it was exaggerated. It was disgusting me. I was not good enough to be in the presence of any other human being. So I'm going through this thing. And so I would close my door. I would say, okay, for 30 seconds, I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to be fully present for this poor stomach that's had criticisms go on from my brain over the years. If I can sit with it for 30 seconds and name it as an 8 out of 10 and feel like I want to vomit, I can do that for 30 seconds in order to bring this traumatized, tortured part of me back to myself, at least for 30 seconds. And then after 30 seconds, maybe I need to go and hide and close the door and be in the dark and be in my bed and just kind of escape my feelings for the rest of the day. And then time would pass and I could sit with it for more than 30 seconds. I would get to the end of the 30 seconds. I still felt terrible, but then I would commit to another 30 seconds. I would say, okay, let's check in at the end of the 60 seconds. Are we a 9 out of 10? Yep. 100%. We're a 9 out of 10. Disgust, repulsion, hate, body hate. And then I would kind of just build up over time when these waves of very negative emotions and thoughts would come through. I would watch them. I would experience them as they were in the body, name them. For me, I liked rating them out of 10 to kind of gauge where these experiences were at, and I could kind of track myself. And I got to the point where I could actually, when it was a 9 out of 10, I could sit with it and I could even invite it to come in with the biggest crashing wave of a 10 out of 10. I remember getting to the point where I said to myself, hey, difficult feeling, difficult sensation of total repulsion. Come in for the totality of who you are, hiding in the shadows. Come crash over me, because I am light and I can merge with you and I can alchemize you and I can absorb you into my light, no matter how difficult this 10 out of 10 is. And when I got to that point, it never really got easier, but the invitation that I was giving to this difficult feeling to be present in my field for as long as I could started this process where it would start to fizzle and dissolve quicker and quicker. So the more that I leaned in and committed to the temporary experience of being with and facing these horrible ideas from my own brain or that I'd taken on from society or whoever, whatever, they started to dissolve and fizzle quicker and quicker. And what they started to get replaced with was a newfound spaciousness. An experience of being able to walk around in public without really thinking much, without paying much attention internally in my inner critic about what I looked like, to the point where I didn't need to wear makeup when I left the house, to the point where I didn't need to dye my hair anymore. I mean, it's like half gray. To the point where I could wear whatever. I could wear baggy clothes. I could wear a t-shirt and jeans. I could wear a really nice outfit. And at the end of the day, I was totally okay with me, because it was me that was the warrior. It was me that was the light. It was me that was the energy emanating from within. And, you know, if those kind of ideas came, I could kind of see them coming from afar and be like, oh, hey guys, you know, nice to see you again, but I am. And this is kind of what started to happen. This is like a long process. This is a long process of being extremely committed to myself and my former self, you know, my teenage 20 and into my 30s, waxing and waning body dysmorphia. But when our addictions, our distractions are trying to alter ourselves at all costs, when that stops working, we get to a point where we're kind of like between a rock and a hard place. And either we can kind of just go into like deep, dark depression and kind of like dismal despair from there and just think this is our lot in life, or we can step up and face. We can face whatever it is, even if you're not a body dysmorphia person and you don't understand what I'm talking about. The inner critic has like different flavors based on who we are and what our experience has been. And so being able to stand without having to numb these days, feeling the freedom in this area, the spaciousness to be able to be myself as the aging process, the natural beautiful aging process goes on in my body, whatever that looks like. Not feeling guilty about what kind of unhealthy food I have eaten, not needing to run to the gym to work that off, not worrying about eating cake for dinner 4 days in a row. It's like no problem. It's just a non-thought. It's not part of it anymore. And you know, just being curious about like the ways that our bodies, and this is especially for women, but for women and men, like we're both affected. How is my body and my face and my hair and my muscles, like how is this changing over the years? I stopped going to the gym, oh my goodness, like over 5 years ago. You know, I'll still drop in once in a while because I want to be in shape. I practice, you know, gentle yoga. I walk a lot. But making sure that I work off every calorie, that's just like a thing of the past. And I was terrified of like, what will happen to my body if I don't have this diet and exercise routine? Like I'm going to, you know, my worst nightmare is going to come true. I'm going to blow up like a balloon. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You know, when you trust the process and feel everything, then this spaciousness eventually, if you stick with it, committed to yourself, this spaciousness does start to come in where these things are an afterthought, where you're not dumping a bunch of money into altering your physical appearance, where you're not comparing yourself to other people, but you're just happy to be your unique light in this world. However that shows up in your body, you're committed to being healthy, but not going overboard and stressing out that inner child who's, you know, this is the last thing that they want to do. And when you can walk the world kind of like symbolically naked, you know, just being who you are and what you look like, and you're okay with your energy, then you will start to find that the type of people that you end up connecting with and meeting with, becoming friends with, collaborating with, they're doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing because you're in that energy, you're on that wavelength, where the focus is not altering your physical appearance. The focus is not these other things that are part of the past, although they are honored, and that, you know, that was an experience. So the type of people that will come into your life are much more self-accepting. This is not about being perfect. This is not about never having a bad or critical thought about yourself. This is about the majority of the energy, the majority of the way the mind works, being retrained in a full acceptance of who you really are, and just noticing any critical thoughts that might come through, because they always will try and show up. I mean, it's never perfect, but the core of this message really is to say that if anybody has struggled with body dysmorphia for many, many years, and they have done some of the things and felt some of the things that I described, that it's not a life sentence. It's not a life sentence. Your brain can get rewired, but it is about really facing and going into the depths of these feelings of repulsion. And without blame, like it could be role models, it could be society. As sensitive people, we take on ideas and expectations and compare ourselves to other people, but that can be a thing of the past. You don't need to take that on. Once you're aware of it, some sacred texts talk about angels having eyes of fire. And one of the symbols for fire is awareness. So when our eyes of fire find something that is out of alignment in our life, that is part of the dialogue of the inner critic, once we identify it and we realize we're suffering because we're living in it over and over and over, our eyes of fire can stare it down and be like, okay, you're here, you're saying what you're saying, but I want the truth. And if there's any lies in there, my eyes of fire, my awareness is just going to consume anything false, because that's just the way it works. And when your spiritual fire is growing and growing, you're tending to your reflection and your self-love as much as possible, that fire is going to heat up anything that's out of alignment, including body dysmorphia. And for me, when these lies basically started to get burned up one by one, slowly, the more natural, ordered way of eating and not obsessing about ingredients or calories or what other people thought, or eating an extra dessert, none of those really bother you anymore, because the core, the inner critic dialogue has had the light of God shone on it. It doesn't have any more power, and so therefore what is in the natural order will start to return to you, because it's there waiting. It's just covered up by a lot of nonsense. It's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be, although the experience of facing it can be really long and arduous and difficult. And I wish you all the best. Do reach out for help. It's already hard enough, and it's still going to be hard when you do reach out for help. So you might as well take all the support you can get if you are in the experience of really facing something very deep and dark. So these things are dark, but the light is coming for them. The light is coming for them. Yeah. So blessings to you if you have experienced this, because I know firsthand just how overtaking and all-consuming it can be in your life. But it's not a life sentence. It does not have to be forever. And just wishing you all the best out there. Journey well.